stats and the info. Rocking with Fleming, be better, that's my kinfolk. We got everything you need and some more. Reporting live with the sports. It's time for uproar, 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 uproar.
Hey, what's up? Reno Topic here, live on a Tuesday night. This is Upper Radio Show, and as always, I'm with my dog, Flem. But before we do anything else, please do us a special favor. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Always stay tuned with the show and what we got going on. But for tonight's show, we got a very, very special guest, my former coach, one of the TSU great linebackers. I'm going to call him Mr. Coach Rod Reed. Man, what's going on, Coach?
What's going on, guys? Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, man, we're glad to have you back, man. And you know, as always, it's always a pleasure to talk ball with you. For me, it was as when you're playing for you don't really get a chance to talk ball like that to your coach. It's you just listening in and just doing your best to handle the task that your coach gives you, man. So I'm always glad. But for tonight, as we've been talking about, man, this is all about the continuation, right, of the Tennessee State-Jackson State rivalry. And as Flem has highlighted, man, this is the first time in 37 years that Jackson State will be in Nashville, man. So what a time. And we're going to get into some good things. We're going to touch on your time as a player, preparing for Jackson State, and then what that's like. And then from there, just the first time you got a chance to coach against them as well. And then as a coordinator, but then ultimately as the head coach, and now you got to think beyond just defense, right? Now you got to really prepare everything about the team from the time that you that game preparation from the week all the way up until kickoff, and then through the adjustments, man. So we're gonna have us a good one, man. Thank you for having you on.
No problem.
Yeah. Well, let's get this going, man. So first up, man, for me, Coach, man, before we really dive into this, just quick, just share with us, man, just how things going your way. I know you got your son, Marcel Reed. He's doing his thing down at Texas A&M. Had a good run this year. Didn't finish where we obviously hope for them to finish, but still making it to the college football playoffs. It's still a good trajectory for him, man. So from where they were last year with him taking over, and then now obviously this year. So just talk to us about obviously what you got going on personally, but still obviously with him as a player and how he's developing.
Yeah, real proud of him, man. I think this year was a big learning year for him. He actually made a pretty significant jump from last year to this year in being able to navigate the pocket and things of that nature, things that you want to see from an SEC quarterback and a kid that's possibly going to be a next level guy. Had a lot of momentum going into the last couple of games. I think, his play declined in those last couple of games a little bit. And it wasn't just Marcel. I think a lot of onus was put on him. For whatever reason, we didn't run the ball well our last 3 football games, and we threw the ball way more than we ran. And part of that was probably, Le'Veon Moss wasn't completely healthy. But, we had some very capable backs in Reuben Owens and E.J. Smith, Amari Daniels, even the little Morrow kid from Memphis, my former player's kid, Jamari Morrow. He's going to be special. Let me just bookmark that right now. He's going to be a special kid. But, I thought he did some good things, man. And, in the Miami game, drove the ball down the field, with under 2 minutes left, had an opportunity from the 5-yard line. I really wish we'd have done a little more, maybe a rollout, a QB draw or something, run or something in there. But, the game dictates, what you do. And I never question coaches, especially a coach like Coach Elko and Coach Klein, who got that team to 11-0 at one point this year, which is very hard to do in college football, let alone in the SEC. So I'm really proud of him. I think that he's going to grow from here, and I think he's only going to get better. He works out, weekends with his QB coach, Jeff Christensen, a guy out of Dallas, a really well-renowned QB coach. He's doing some really good things with him. I think that the sky's the limit for him. He's just got to kind of hone in and, don't get caught up in the big lights or anything like that, and just stay grounded, and do what he knows to do. And let me also mention my daughter. I'm really proud of her also.
Okay, Bria.
Yeah, Bria is actually the assistant director of on-campus recruiting at LSU. So you can imagine how the transfer portal and all that stuff was was kind of popping off. It was real funny having her there and having them in need of a quarterback. And Marcel is at A&M, so it's kind of funny with some conversations that we had, but it was nothing tampering, anything like that. But she would have loved for her brother to be with her, and I told her that wasn't.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about. I love it.
So they've always been rivals. She went to Brentwood Academy. He was at MBA, so he's gotten the best of her a couple of times. I think Brentwood Academy got them one time, so he got her at LSU, and I think maybe she got him at Mizzou one. No, we beat Mizzou both years when she was at Mizzou. So hopefully we can keep that run going on Marcel's side. So me personally, I'm just enjoying life right now. Getting an opportunity to watch them grow. In their different arenas. So just hanging out, man, having a good time.
Good deal. Real quick before we switch over, tell me this, like from what Bria has shared with you. When you're like in that recruiting space on a high level in college, like what does that energy feel like? Did it sound like something that's very similar to like NFL draft and okay, you're getting your boys together and you're at the office and it's still 10:30 at night and you're there like you are as a coach, you're there super early, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. Like what does that flow look like during that portal?
Look, man, during the transfer portal and during recruiting, 10:30 at night is an early night for them. From what I understand, she was real beat up and happy to get a couple of days off. With the portal being closed and the signing days coming up, they still have guys that are coming in on visits and things like that. So she's responsible for getting a lot of that stuff set up and making travel plans for coaches and recruits and setting up everything. So she's really taken to that role. From what I hear, she does a really good job, and I'm proud of her.
Good deal, man. Well, let's get into it. Like now, we're gonna talk some TSU football and JSU stuff, man. But before we do that,
so hold on.
You got one?
Yeah, I want to make sure people understood what this coach just said. Okay. We started out. How you doing, coach? I didn't get a chance. Reno gets, he gets long winded when he see you. You think you might make him run some sprints or something. You know what I mean? So he gets going. So, but we had to bring that back a little bit. So, you being the former head coach at Tennessee State University, your son is Marcel Reed, the starting quarterback at Texas A&M, who just made it to the college football playoffs, and it was 11-0 this year. That's what we just talked about a little bit, right, Coach?
Right, for sure.
And us Tiger fans know Marcel ever since he was knee high to a duck because he used to bring the team out, right? Okay. And so not only did he used to bring the team out, my son was with Marcel. What's the other boy bringing the team out, right?
Right, sure.
So that was some little Tigers that are now thriving in some other big power schools. But then we talked about your daughter Bria, who is actually at LSU, that's bringing in talent that is battling against her brother. That's another SEC school. I just want to be there for Thanksgiving next year, Coach. That's all I'm saying. I just. Give me a chance to come over because I remember both of them and they're both beautiful kids. I ran into Marcel on this off week when he was here for the Vanderbilt game, and I embarrassed him a little bit because I brought that little small tiger picture, with his when he was a little tiger, to one of his friends. So I mean that's just amazing, Coach. That's just amazing that you of course the success you've had. The success your father had, let's don't forget about who started it all from Marshall, Texas, was Big Reed, which brought Little Reed. Now all the Little Reeds are succeeding too. So that's pretty amazing, Coach. Pretty amazing.
Thank you.
It is, Coach. Tell me this: when you hear your name now, especially when you're around TSU people, who do you think most people identify with? Is it the player, the coordinator, or the head coach?
That's a good question. I really don't know. I mean, you got a lot of still got a lot of fans that um, are very respectful for the job that we did here at Tennessee State. I think that, given the resources that we had, a lot of people think that, Tennessee State is the Mecca, but we really had to do a lot of things to make this thing go. And, given the limited resources that we had, the scholarship limits that we were held to, for what we did with the program during that time was pretty amazing when you sit back and you just take a look at it. And I won't go into a deep dive on that, anything like that. But, we had to do a lot of things to keep things together, staff, players, recruiting, and all of that. So, I get it on both ends, and people also respect the job that we did as a team, from 1984 to 1988, and the great players that I played with. I was fortunate to catch some clips of you guys interviewing my guy, Anzi Elam, a couple of days ago. And Anzi is a great friend of mine, great mentor. I was one of the few freshmen that was on that travel squad, that my first year in 84, when y'all were talking about the Louisville game, I happened to be, on the trip on that game. And we won't say what I did on that trip. This new 5-year rule they try to put out, I think we adhered to it a little bit sometimes back then. But it was cool being around those guys, him, Buck Buchanan, Steve Dowdell, Harold Turks, Iron Mike Robinson. I can go on and on. Dave Daniels, Roger Robinson, Carl McAfee. You want to talk about a great defense, man. I mean, it was awesome to be around those guys and be around greatness, man. And that was when you say a player-led team and a team that was owned by the players. That's what when you look at Ozzy, you look at Buck, you look at those guys, Dave Daniels and those guys. I mean, they always led workouts. We didn't have a strength coach, back then, and we would go in the weight room with our weight sheets, and the what we call back then the chairman would lead all the groups through not only the lifting but the running. Now the coaches put a lifting program for us together. Together for us, but they made sure at that time that we adhered to everything that the coaches wanted us to do. And then when it became my turn, I was that guy, a 5-year guy. So there's a term of endearment. If you've ever been around, older TSU players, we refer to each other as 5. So, any of them guys I see, what's up, 5? And that's just saying, you did 5 years at Tennessee State University, and it's a badge of reverence.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So talking about a little bit that coach, of course, we're going to start off with your playing career because that's how it all began. You got here in 84. That was 11-0 team. Your last year was 88, which is the last time Jackson State was here in Nashville, Tennessee, and that's what started this series of Not the Southern Heritage Classic. But you have a unique distinction that a lot of people don't want to talk about, and we're going to talk about it tonight. Okay.
What's that?
That you are the all-time leading tackler at Tennessee State University is Rod Reed.
Hey, look, if the boys are watching the YouTube channel, Kendall Stevens, our former SID, rest in heaven. Kendall was a big fan of mine, and they said all I had to do was be around the pile, and I was going to get the tackle. But like I tell them, when you're around the pile a lot, that means you're doing a lot of good things. So, I think, I was a film guy. And, I may not have been the greatest athlete. I was a pretty good athlete. I could run a little bit. I was a 4'6" guy, I was 225 pounds and could run. But, I spent I was probably one of the few players that had the reel-to-reel, film projector up in my room, watching tape. So, I was coaching. I think I was kind of born to be a coach because I was analyzing tape back then. And, you watch so much tape, you watch formations, you watch down and distance, and, you just do it over and over. The redundancy is unbelievable. And then, you go out every day and practice and you do drills over and over. We did key drills every day. We did certain things every day. They were called every days. And I carried that over to my film study. I studied film every day. And I was able to diagnose, plays and see what was coming a lot of times before it happened. Being a linebacker, you got to be able to diagnose a play within a half a second. Once that ball snaps, guard does this, center does this, and our keys would take you to where you needed to go. So that's being all-time leading tackler took a lot, but it also helped that you had Alex Carter, you had Iron Man Mike, you had Lawrence Mims, you had Willie McGurdy, you had Steve Dodell, Charles Buck Buchanan, and then one year you had a Robert Porcher, a Dan Williams, Anthony Pleasant, and I said two of those guys, Porcher and Dan Williams, ended up leaving here because of the I think so much running, but those guys ended up in first-round draft pick. Dan Williams transferred and went to Toledo, and Porcher went to South Carolina State, as everybody knows. Now, he still claims Tennessee State. Big Bobby's still my boy. We still talk to this day. Yeah, man, we had a lot of great players, and I just used to tell them, hey, man, y'all shake the trees and I'll rake the leaves, baby.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So that's not a lot. People say that. I know we've talked about it when I covered and did the show. I was your color announcer when you was the head football coach. So I was able to be on ESPN and all the coverage, and I'll be talking about some of the things that I talk about now, but some of the current things and the current players, because we were really woven into the program because of your connection and your time at Tennessee State. And the other thing that a lot of people don't even recognize and understand is that you brought a Black national championship to Tennessee State University.
Yeah, I mean that was that was difficult because we were playing in the OVC, which is not considered a HBCU. We always had that stigma. We wasn't a real HBCU, but if you look at our record against the HBCUs that we played, which was the Jackson State, the FAMUs, Bethune-Cookman, Southern, I think our record against HBCUs in my tenure was maybe 26-4, or I think we only lost maybe 4 or 5 games to HBCUs. You guys can fact check that, but I know I'm close on that. And, that being said, if we played in the SWAC, we probably have a fistful of rings on our fingers, so to speak. Yeah, I'm talking a little noise right now, but
I'm with it. I'm with it. I'm with it.
I think that we did a really good job, and we held our own in OVC. I was talking to a guy. I won't name names, but he's a ESPN guy, and he covers a lot of ESPN games. And he was telling me that they wasn't going to let you guys win in the OVC. The other coaches would plot against you. They would share information, and we knew that. But our job was to go out there and put the best foot forward and get our kids prepared to play. Like I said, even with the limited things that we had. We are, our job was to not complain. I don't want to be a part of the problem. I want to be a part of the solution.
Oh, yeah.
That's what our motto was, make it happen with what we got. And I thought we did that. And, obviously, we had an opportunity to go to the playoffs. We had an opportunity to win that HBCU National Championship. And I'm still waiting on our rings, though. We only got 2. If y'all listening out there, yeah, we got a T-shirt. We got a T-shirt for winning the Black National Championship. So if y'all listening, all my boys do a ring. So ante up.
2013 was that year. So that was a great accomplishment, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Coach, tell me this: when you were playing, and we're gonna now really get into this Jackson State stuff, man. But just tell me about like that first time when it's Jackson State week. Did you get any sense of raising of the bar from how Coach Gillum or Coach Thomas, any of them did any of them that week? Did you sense that they were raising it up a little bit?
Look, dude, you're gonna think I'm lying, but I just had chills go through my body when you start. I'm serious. I'm dead serious, man. Wow. Jackson State was a different entity. It was a different beast. Jackson State week was true rivalry. It was true hate. And just a short story, I can remember going to the Liberty Bowl one year. At the Liberty Bowl, you didn't always come out on opposite ends. We used to come out, one side would be on one side and the other side would be on the other. And I can remember going, getting out of practice, and Jackson State was going to practice, or vice versa. And we were walking by them, and they were walking the top, and Carl McAfee grabbed the biggest guy he could find and just started choking him. the fight right there. And
Man.
he had to be pulled apart, and everybody, we gained that composure. But that's the kind of hate. Hate to use such a strong word, but there's a strong dislike for Jackson State. It is a rivalry game. Got a lot of respect for those guys now. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But when you talk about Jackson State, it's going to be a physical game. And, that week is going to be extremely intense. And not only when I was playing, but when I was coaching. It's you can do a lot of things at Tennessee State, but losing Jackson State ain't one of them. Too happy, when that happens as a player or a coach. So we made sure that game was always circled on our schedule, so to speak. And, you take them one at a time. And, the coach speak is that, we playing the one that's in front of us. But everybody knew, that second or third week in September, whenever it was, it was time to go to war.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What was the locker room like? Because you just talk, especially because, give me that 84 time frame when you got there as a freshman. Talk to me about just the locker room itself, especially as you get closer to the game. We're on game day, and was the locker room environment still the same no matter what, as far as like what coach is allowed to go on in the locker room, or was it one of those games where I know for us, when you were coaching us, Coach, I mean, it was a level of quietness in there, but for a reason. It wasn't no shakiness. It was just, I felt like folks were on edge because I can remember myself as when I'm playing against them where I remember at breakfast just, you're intense and it's just like if something is not the way you expect it to be, you already feeling irritated already because you're on one already. But tell me, like, would you agree?
In our player handbook, we had the way we should conduct ourselves throughout the week and the way we'd like to conduct ourselves on game day. Pre-game meal was a quiet meal where you talk amongst your teammates quietly. It's not a loud thing, because you should be getting locked in on the game. So that was always my mantra. We always had a couple of dudes cut up, and then once it get a little loud, Coach Reed would probably say a little something to get everything back under control. But these days it's a little different, man. These guys got the music going. But I'll tell you what, when I was in the mid '80s, it was the same. Our guys would be in the lockers. Guys would be to themselves, kind of to themselves. And about 5 minutes before the game, Tim Lloyd, we used to call him Ragman, he would put Houdini 5 minutes of funk. And then the locker room would get crunk, and everybody started going crazy, and the adrenaline started rushing, and we get ready to take the field. But that was kind of how it was. Got our hype song going, and we take the field, take care of business.
I like that 5 minutes of funk, baby.
Well, I always go back to my days as a young boy, when you were actually on the field. I was in Jackson, Mississippi in the early '80s, mid '80s. Moved here back in '86, fall '86. But we were walking across the street to the vet when y'all. Well, you did you? I don't think you ever played in the vet, did you? Well, you played in the vet in '86 in the playoffs, right?
Yeah. We went in '86 in the playoffs to play.
Yeah. So we used to walk across there and you could tell when Tennessee State, because I was a Jackson State fan went to about 5 or 6 years old. I'm just in transparency because I was living in Jackson, Mississippi, and you didn't have no choice. I you know what I'm saying? 'Cause I didn't know no better. You know what I'm saying? I hadn't been to Nashville, but my parents and both of them, you knew my dad, how big he supported you. But that culture from Tennessee State, when they would play Jackson State, they just looked different and played different. And it made Jackson State look different. And I'm talking really about that '86 year. That was that '86 year when y'all beat them twice.
Right.
And we played here in Nashville, won that game. The playoffs come out, and y'all go back to Mississippi and play. But I always tell this story. I remember Iron Mike coming out with that bullhorn, and when y'all came out of that locker room, and you just knew Jackson State was in the wrong spot. And it was the wrong spot, wrong day, wrong time. Tell us a little bit about that, Coach.
Man, as you know, back then in '86, I know I was a part of the starting defense then, because in '85 I was a part-time starter because Tim Lloyd was there and he ended up getting hurt in '85, and then in '86 I became a full-time starter. And believe it or not, in 1986, if I'm not mistaken, again fact check this, but I think we led the nation in total defense, and it's probably one of the most dominating defenses of the era. D1, FBS, FCS, I think we gave up 176, 177 yards on the year. That's unheard of. No team averaged over 170 yards. So that's what we gave up for the year as a defense. And we took a lot of pride in that. And, those guys were a big part of that, man. And, you talk about Iron Mike. When I was a freshman, I heard Anzi say something about gaining the respect of the upperclassmen. I had to go through the same thing. I always was taught to play hard, and I was on the scout team defense, and we were going against the offense. And Barry Collins, we used to call him BC, he's tight end. BC came across the middle, and I gave him one. And when I tell you the everybody on the offensive line and everybody else, they beat the crap out of me that day for about 2 minutes in practice. But, they knew I came to play. And Iron Mike, from that point, when we go to our defensive drills, Iron Mike would never let anybody – I used to get so pissed off because he would never let anybody block him on offense but me. When we were over defense, giving our defensive pitcher, I used to have to line up over him. I left practice with a headache every day because Iron Mike was benching 500 pounds back then. Yeah. And he never got my name right. He always called me Reeves or put Reeves. He had that laugh. And but I gave him what I had. It was almost like a Rudy situation, man, to be honest with you. But those guys made me tough. They molded me. And when I got my opportunity, I was playing behind them and played well. But coming out of that tunnel, with the Bullhorn and those guys, they didn't play. It was time to go to war, man. It was time to go to war. Those guys, they led the charge. They led by example. And, playing behind him and Lawrence Mims, they were cool. The ones I had problem with was Buck, Dardell, and, even Turks sometimes. Those guys, they used to like to rush the passer. Mm-hmm. So them dudes would look back at me, and I'm at that linebacker, and they just say, hey, I'm gone, Rook. So that I got a two-gap because they ain't thinking about, playing the run. So, we had a lot of fun with it, but they were so dominant up front, man, and it made me a great player just being able to play behind those guys, and I really appreciate them to this day.
Coach, tell me this: when as you're preparing for a rivalry week and a big game like this, as a player, only as a player right now, what do you feel like, from what you can remember, was most important for you as you prepared? Was it conditioning? Was it just knowing your assignments? Was that what was number one for you to make sure that you had that on point going into that game?
Well, if you played for us back in the day, conditioning wasn't ever an issue. First of all, we had to run the track, and you had to make your times on the track. And if you could do that, you could run track for a college team, I believe. Our DBs used to have to run a 5:20, 5:30 mile, and we used to have to run a 6 minute. But also, if we got out of practice, after practice, if we got away with 2100s, that was considered a good day for us. And everything we did was for time, so we never felt out of shape. We knew going in the fourth quarter we were going to be the better conditioned team, and that wasn't even a question. So our focus was, maximum effort and technique execution. It's the defenses. It's our defensive philosophy to operate in the defense's backfield using calculated line stunts and blitzes to confuse the opponents. Mm-hmm. And that's straight out of Craig Gillum's playbook. I still believe that philosophy today. Man, it was all about technique execution and doing your job. And everybody always talks about Bill Belichick and doing your job and things like that. Was our mantra back in the day: do your job. Because if everybody does their job, the whole defense is going to be great. And you're 1/11th of the defense. and you just take care of your end, and everything else works itself out. It wasn't. Coach used to say all the time, it doesn't matter what the score is. It doesn't matter what the other team does. All we worry about is how well are we going to play. Yeah. And if we play our best game, the outcome will take care of itself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tell me this, when we're going to transition now from the player side of coach to defensive coordinator side. So that first time back, Coach Reese, I was a part of his last recruiting class that y'all brought in under Coach Reese, man, and he brought you in to help get that defense back in order. It was a combination of you and I would probably say Fuller, because I think, did y'all both come back together at the same time?
Yeah, Dwayne Thomas stayed on as
yeah. Okay, yeah. Him, Coach Turner. I remember Coach Turner.
Tony Turner, Eric Mathis.
Coach Mathis, yeah, D-line coach, yeah.
He's at Memphis now.
Okay.
Coach off.
Yeah.
But we had a really good staff, man. But I think, coming in, before I took this job, I actually came down for about a week and just kind of looked at tape and, watched. And I'm watching and I'm like, man, it ain't what you're doing, it's how you're doing it, because the talent was there. But, sometimes the front end didn't match up with the back end. And you'd be running this coverage, but, you got to marry the front with your secondary coverage if you want to be successful. Otherwise, there are going to be some holes there. So once I looked at that and I was able to kind of look at the talent that we had and look at the roster, I said, man, I can do this. And I was told when I got here, I was like, they were the worst defense in the Ohio Valley Conference my first year there. Coming off that year, they had finished last in total defense, or we had finished last in total defense. And I was tasked with, whipping the defense into shape, so to speak. And I was told by some prominent people, if you put this guy out there, you're going to lose. You do this, you're going to lose. And one of those guys was Deion Giddens, and they were saying this and that about Deion, he can't. But what they didn't understand is, from looking at the film, is, Deion would be in cover 2 sometime, and the safety didn't do what he was supposed to do. So while Deion was playing the flat, it looked like guy was running by. Same with Scott Cunningham, And then we had a safety that's an attorney here now, Ahmed Safula. Yeah. Ahmed wasn't the most athletic, gifted guy in the world, but he was really cerebral and smart. So we took those guys and we got everybody on the same page. And, we had some guys up front that were pretty good. And we made it work. So that defense went from the worst defense in the OVC in 1 year to the number 1 defense in the conference the following year. And Deion Giddens ended up going to the Buffalo Bills. I think Scott Cunningham was at the Titans.
He was Titans for a little bit, yeah.
For a minute. So, I was really proud of the job we were able to do there. And I don't think as a defense, while I was coordinator, we ever finished out of the top 5 in total defense in the OVC.
Oh, man. That's good stuff, man. For me, I think that's that's a testament towards, again, it's like you're understanding what it took as a player, because you paid dues, right? And then you step into a situation where, I tell people this all the time, when you step into a situation, you're choosing that, for instance, like, especially as a coach, right? You're choosing that, right? So first of all, you got to evaluate, like you said, you evaluated what you had on film first. And it's like, no, it's not bad at all. It's just, you got to get them to understand how to do the job the right way, and because it's always the easiest thing to say as a coach when you get a job is, well, give me some time, I got to get my guys in, right? So, these guys ain't nothing. But I've always said, when you take a job, you can't just necessarily get rid of, well, at least prior to the portal, you couldn't just get rid of everybody.
Right.
But it's like, at that time, you just can't get rid of everybody. It's like, so you got to take on what you have right there and got to believe that you got the ability to get them going, man. So, and as, those guys, Deion, Scott, I love them to death. I wish I could have played with them, but I was still fortunate enough to play with some pretty good ones that learned from them, Aaron Strong, man. And he's another one of those, man, that
Aaron Strong was one of those guys that you tried everything you could to replace him, but you couldn't get him. Technique sound guy, always played hard. And he was just another cerebral guy, that made plays. And I was like, man, he's not big enough, he's not fast enough, or whatever the case may be. But you couldn't take him off the field, man. So that's a kid. I'm glad you brought that name up because I kind of forgot about Strong Man, but he was a really good player for us. Yep.
Well, man. Old Strong.
Well, the thing is, you talked a little bit about when you got into the coordinator position, and that was under two head coaches, uh, um,
Reese and what?
Reese and Webster.
Right.
And during that time period in the 2000s, the Tennessee State team started to take over that Southern Heritage Classic with consecutive wins. That's when it started. That's when in the 90s when I was there, it was tough for us in the 90s. It was just tough.
Right.
And but 2000 came around. You guys got to change now. That to his credit, James Webster did show up at Jackson State University, okay, and really put them in a bad spot. And if you talk to Jackson State fans now, you say something about James Webster, and they changed the helmets, they changed the block, emblems. A lot of things changed with that head coaching and that leadership, but we took advantage of it. Okay, so when it was like Shannon said, nobody told y'all to get on the bus. You had to do what you had to do, and we took advantage of it, and we're happy with that. But the thing that one thing when you became the head coach, you kept it going. But it was a small, 2010, 2011. That's when Jackson State had the White Tiger, and boy, did the White Tiger give you a problem, Coach. Talk about them two games right there.
Man, I'll tell you what, it was back and forth, but that kid was special.
Terry up.
I'm not going, trample on him, anything where they got him from, anything like that. But I can remember. I remember, playing those games and just remember, man, we can't kill the head of the snake. If we could have just stopped him, because it was one of those games where he was just in takeover mode, and hats off to him and and the coaching staff for realizing that and letting him do what he does. Because Jackson State have always had great skill. I mean, anytime we've ever played Jackson State, they had NFL receivers on the team, offensive lineman or two, defensive lineman or whatever the case may be. But that kid was special, and that's what it kind of puts you in the mind of a kid like Mike German. Mike German could take over a football game. You didn't need to be perfect when you had a Mike German on your football team. So, that was they gave us a couple that may have been the only two that we lost. In my tenure as a head coach, I think we were like 9-2 or 8-2 or something like that against Jackson State. So we still got a couple up on. I can always take that to the grave.
Yeah, they came back and got us in 2019. That was a shootout. That's when Roland, I think he had a punt return, a kickoff return, and a touchdown return. It was a shootout, that 2019 game. But other than that, you controlled that series as a head coach.
And I mean, it is what it is. Jackson State, man. It's Jackson State. It's just one of those things where you're always gonna get up, for that game, and and if you need somebody to get you up for that game, you're in the wrong business if you're at Tennessee State.
We never. I mean, again, I'm part of that crew that's 5-0, so I smile when I see them, man. But I remember, Coach. Remember Cletus Jordan, wide receiver.
Yep.
Said he put a scare on us a couple times. I remember they had that running back. Remember that year they had, I think that was 06 season. They had all these transfers. So inside Coach Reed. So my dad's, he's from Mississippi. You know that. He's part of 5 boys in his family, and his oldest brother, Fred, played for Coach Merritt at Jackson State. So, I remember we would play against them, and that year they had 21 transfers that came in, and, Uncle Fred's called me talking about, we're going to have a 21-gun salute on y'all at the Southern Heritage Classic. I was like, I said, it don't matter what happens. At the end of the day, we're going to find a way to beat y'all every single time. Hey. And that was a year we had the fumbled field goal snap that Hartman picked up, and he tosses the B Black. Fall to the end zone.
And let B Black tell it. It's a fish story. It was a called play. And he won the game. That was kind of exciting right there. It was, we've always had, really solid special teams, and for that to happen and the way that game ended, because I think we would have been in a tie, had we kicked the field goal right there. The game would have been tied, but we ended up buffing the snap and winning the game. So, it was great to get out of the Southern Heritage Classic, without an overtime or anything like that, to win it in that fashion. But if my memory calls me, that game always came down to almost a final possession a lot of the times, man. There were a couple of blowouts in there, but you knew you were in a dogfight every time you played Jackson State. And it ain't going to be no different, man. With this rivalry starting back up, because first of all, if I'm looking at this right, it's a home and home series. So, the people from Jackson, Mississippi, they're going to come in here in droves, man. And, I know we're going to invade, Jackson when we go down there, at Jackson Memorial. So we got to make sure that, we defend our home turf at least. So it's going to be a big game. I'm excited for it. Sorry, I'm probably not going to be able to be here to watch it, but I'll even.
It's week 0. It's week 0, Coach.
0?
Yeah, it's week 0. And the other thing, we got Jackson State folks watching us, man, and I just made a colossal mistake, and I got to clean it up because I just got hammered. I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. I said James Webster because I was talking about Webster up here. The name I was trying to say was James Bell.
Oh, James Bell. Oh,
James Bell. That's what I was trying to say. And then I had,
You tell your Jackson State people, James Bell didn't have nothing to do with that butt whooping.
It was James Bell.
Tell them that was coming anyway. So I'm gonna strike a little fire. They'll be y'all can talk about Coach Reed. He don't coach no more, but he was gonna catch that L anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I remember going. We have the at the Southern Heritage Classic. They had a press conference every year. And, our both coaches get up there and speak. And Common G's was the coach one year, and he got up there talking about, we were coming in and they were coming in. And I think they had dropped the game. And he was talking about, how he was going to, jump in. And he's like, well, what are you going to do, Coach? And he said, I'm going to help him. I'm going to jump in there and help you. So we're going to help him. And he was kind of talking a little noise. And then I remembered a little story that my dad told me. He said he went to a boxing match one time. And I told this at the press conference, and he said, this guy getting ready to fight, he's getting ready to box. And, the guy came and knelt down in the corner, did the sign of the cross, knelt down and prayed. And my dad said it was a preacher sitting next to me. And I looked over there and I said, Father, would that help him any? And he said, the priest looked at my dad. My dad said the priest looked at him and he said, not if he can't fight. So I was telling him, help him all you want to, but they ain't on the field. They're gonna kick their butt. So it was a lot of back and forth going on. It was some really good times, in this Jackson State series. I'm glad to see it crank back up. Kind of missed the Southern Heritage Classic, being in Memphis. That was like a bowl game for us. We used to go to the children's St. Jude's and spend some time with the kids on the way down, and do some go to the Civil Rights Museum, things of that nature. So we treated it almost like a bowl game when we took our kids on that trip. But it being a home and home, it's going to be a great series, and I'm, like I said, excited about. And I'm glad to know that it's week 0. So I probably more than likely I will be at that game unless Texas A&M gets a week 0 game or whatever, right. Which I don't. That's not going to happen.
Coach. I mean, I'll say this, man. I'm personally totally okay with not having a Southern Heritage Classic, because me personally, I wish I could have went and played in Jackson at their center. I wish they could have came to us. That's just me. After going through all the greatness of what we got to experience in the Southern Heritage Classic, I still wish that we could have had a home and home. To me, that's a miss, man.
Hey, look, you didn't want them problems, man. I'm glad we were in the site. We treat that as a home game. I would rather, look, I'm telling you, them coming here and us going there, I can remember playing them in the hole, I want to say, and I don't know if that was 86, whatever the case may be, but, we had the band. It was so many people in the stands. They had temporary stands. The band was actually on the field in chairs in the corner of the end zone. And when I say you couldn't move in the hole, I mean, that's the kind of crowd that was there for that game, and being able to, to witness that, as a home game it definitely, again, I just got some more chills just thinking about it, man. It was so exciting, and it was something that we took great pride in. During my time at TSU, I don't think we lost one game in the hole. It was unwritten rule. You don't lose in the hole. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just that's the pride that we play with, defending our turf, and it's just like defending your home turf, just like um, Nissan Stadium. Anytime somebody come into your house, they supposed to leave with a black eye. So uh,
Mm-hmm.
that is, and I know that Coach Barlow do a terrific job of getting these young men, ready for the task at hand. He's not new to the swag, so he know
Mm-hmm.
what Texas State gonna bring to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me this as a when you and we're gonna move in now to your head coach phase of this. But tell me this when as a head coach in this game like this, how often did you stick to your tendencies of what you watched on film, and then how often did you just go with this is the gut feeling right here,
Um,
on
you know,
decision making?
I tell you what, man. I always say this, and I tell anybody that's coordinated with me for me, uh, when I'm looking at a coordinator, if it's a defensive coordinator and he's looking at his call sheet, he's in trouble. Uh, I knew my call sheet forward and backwards
Hmm.
by the time we got on the field. If you ever saw me looking at the call sheet, I'm looking for an answer. We run into something that I got to go to number 3 and number 4 and number 5,
Hmm.
defense on the card. So you try to stick to your game plan. The thing is, man, you got to be patient, offensively especially. If you've seen something on tape all week and you run it and it's not working like you desire, and then you got to get the guys on the sideline. You got to get in their silos, whether it be receiver, offensive line, running back, and find out what the problem is, diagnose the problem, and then try your best to fix it. Now, whether that's to be to come out and run it out of a different formation, different personnel grouping, things of that nature. Those are things that we need to do as coaches. But it's you just can't go and scrap a game plan just because something ain't working, from the outset. You got offensively. I used to tell the guys all the time they're not patient enough to drive the ball down the field, and that's one of the things I try to get through to Marcel. Just be patient. It's okay to punt the football, and
Yeah.
play defense. Defensively, I always had I think the most important halves of quarters of football, first and third, because if you play well in the first quarter, that means you prepare well. And if you play well in the third quarter, that means you made the proper adjustments. The fourth quarter is just fight and finish. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so those are the things that we try to instill in our players. We're gonna stick with our game plan. Now, I did always throw a wrinkle in the second half, maybe the first two series. I would show them a front or something that they hadn't seen. Because what did they do that first half? They've gone in after the first half
Mm-hmm.
and they've made adjustments to everything that they've seen in the first half, and their blocking is going to dictate as such. Now, you come out in the second half, you throw a couple of different fronts or you know a different blitz or something in there that they hadn't seen, and then now they're on the sideline in the third quarter trying to make adjustments to what you just came out in, and then you go back to what you were kicking the butt with in the first half. you know,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
those are things, and then Reno, as you know this, we always had 3 or 4 ways each week to play empty.
Yep.
Or they came out in the junk formation. We had a mayday call. So we were very disciplined in the things that we were doing on defense, and we would you come out and they come out in empty, which a lot of teams used to run a lot of. We get a lot of skill, but you come out and the first series you may be in the zone. The second series you may be in the pressure. Third series you may be in the all-out blitz, and everybody knew what the automatic was from the adjustments that you made on the sideline. So when you saw empty, you wasn't kind of scratching your head. Hey, what's the call to this going to be? We got automatic to it. They come out in it. This is what we're in. So we would say this is up this series. This is up this series. And we did a lot of things that kind of, which made us a little successful on defense. We did a lot of things that NFL teams were doing as far as playing looks and not just, you get a double call in the huddle. And, if they came out and the tight end was in line, you'd be in one thing. If it came out and he was in an H-back position, you go to a different coverage that allowed you to keep your eyes in the box and be sound against the run. So it's the preparation. Like you said, I think I went way around the corner with that one, but no, we never junked anything, and but you always have that feeling by preparation. You know what the tendencies are. You know what they like to do in the red zone. You know what they like to do coming out. You know what they like to do in the free-wheeling zone. So that's where the gut feeling came from, the preparation that you prepared, all week long to get ready for an opponent. That's where those gut feelings came from and the pressures that you might run because you knew what protections that they were going to be in, and you always wanted to attack protections, and that's what we tried to do.
So, Coach, check this out. So, we have a whole bunch of Tennessee State conversations around, in my household and in my close circle. One of my close circles is one of your close circles, which is like take care of us and keep us healthy. That's Dr. Harvey Wayne Bowles.
Uh-huh.
All right. So we talk all the time. We talk every day. And, one day we got to talking about, we said, could you imagine Coach Rod Reed coaching in the transfer portal era? I mean, because you bought the transfer you brought that thing to the SWAC. To the HBCU, to the OVC. It was you that really got that thing going because you was doing this.
Yeah, you start talking about guys like Cornelius Lewis, Dumica Atkins, Florida State guys, A.C. Leonard, Florida, Pop Sanders.
Wesley Holmes.
Wesley
Dumerville.
Holmes. James Dumerville from Syracuse. So we had some guys to come in and Coach Mashak, he just recently took a job at University of Texas as one of their college scouting guys. He was a young guy then, but the recruiting is a lifeline of your program. You got to be able to go out and what we did was we established relationships. I can remember Marcus Broxy going to recruit him when he was a senior in high school coming out. And, one of my coaches asked me, why are we going to this kid's house? We know we're not going to get him. I say, I want to meet his mom. I want to know everything about him because if he gets to South Carolina and he doesn't like it, we'll have an opportunity to recruit him on the back end. And he's going to be the first ones we call, if he decides to recruit. So we develop relationships with the coaches down south, Alabama, Tennessee. We developed those relationships. So every year, at the end of the year, we reach out to the coaches. Hey, coach, you got anybody thinking we're looking for this? We got a need here, and that's where those relationships were cultivated. They started when those kids were sophomores, juniors in high school. We knew they were fine. I used to tell coaches all the time, who are your college football players, and then some would tell me, hey, these are guys that you can recruit, and I'm like, Coach, I want to talk to all of them. I said, I know that I may not have an opportunity to get all of them, but I want to look them in the eye and let them know what Tennessee State is all about and what we had to offer. And, we got a lot of recruits, after they had gone to, the big boys and to come back and play for us because we had established relationships prior to them going to those schools. So it was something that, I was taught a long time ago about recruiting. It's just something that I instilled in my coaches. We worked hard. We got to know families, and that's where we had such a strong. And we got to know the coaches, the high school coaches. It was unbelievable. Down in Sarasota, Florida, where Dominique is from. I had recruited Sarasota Riverview for years. And Vincent Sellers, Lord rest his soul, he just passed away here. But he was a Division I ball player, and he came here and was a freshman All-American. But I can remember walking in that school, and John Sprague was the head coach. And he was sitting there talking to Ron Zook, the coach from the University of Florida. And when I walked in, I said, Coach, I can wait. He said, no, Reed, bring your butt on in here. He said, he can get out. You recruit my players. He don't. And so that's the kind of relationship, you got people in the barbershop, people in the community. When you go to those places, you ask questions to all those. You talk to the janitor. Those people know more about the kids than the coaches do sometimes. So home visits were always important to me. I know, I watched Coach Prime. He said he don't do home visits, but, we didn't recruit kids because of the way the home visit went sometimes. I went into one kid's home and he was disrespectful to his mom. And I told Coach, "Hey, Coach, let's go." And I thanked him and I thanked his mom for inviting us into his home. But I told him we won't be recruiting him because if he's not respectful of you, he won't give a darn about us. So
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
those are the core values, that we kind of put on recruiting, and we worked hard at doing it, and we reap the benefits of it.
So
Yeah.
not only did you transfer have kids to transfer from major FBS schools, but you did an amazing job with high school talent as well. And every year of your tenure, you was always top three in HBCU recruiting classes, and I think people forgot about that. You know how much talent you brought in, and you was always short scholarships. And you already know what else we had to be short with too, with the other resources. So
Right,
you
right.
know those things, man. You just got to give people their flowers, and most definitely, we're gonna
But
definitely
again,
do that.
Flem, that's why you roll up your sleeves and again,
Hmm.
not being a part of the problem, be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
I told every guy when I hired him, every coach on my staff had a liaison or something. We had a guy in charge of financial aid. We had a guy in charge of
Hmm.
housing. We had a guy, we had a recruiting coordinator. We had a guy in charge of a liaison to the equipment manager. So when we met in our staff meetings, every morning, we had an opportunity to go over our board, see where we were, in the off season, the recruiting board changes constantly. You get film in every day. We had days where we watched film. We had days where we made the phone calls. So it was kind of a well-oiled machine of how we recruited and how we brought talent in. Our biggest problem I think toward the end of my tenure was people don't realize this during my entire 10 years of being a head coach at TSU. I don't think we ever had summer school. We guys that needed summer school, we were allowed to, get them in and get them eligible, but we never had summer school where we had our team here to work out as a unit. And that was, I think, kind of the downfall on the back end, not having the resources to do that. And we did what we could. You know that. We had guys staying 3 or 4 in an apartment and going
Oh
to
yeah.
Sam's and buying food for them and stuff like that. But again, that's part of being a part of the solution, not a part of the problem, and making it work. So we didn't make excuses. I'm really proud of what we accomplished here, and I think that when you talk about like you said, recruiting and transfers. We started the kind of the trans. We made them change the rules with Travis Ward. I don't know how we got Travis Ward eligible. Lord rest his soul, but
Yeah, man.
we were getting kids like that, and people were like, "Well, how did they, get?" But it was a relationship with people down there in the community, with the coaches, and being able to, get Travis some online classes that he needed that were legal, doing things of that nature. We went the extra mile to get kids. Rico Counselor is another one. I went down personally, talked to Rico's counselor, got him out of the classes that he were in because they wasn't going to help him towards graduation and getting eligible. And then we got him in the right classes and, ended up getting Rico the same way. But it was what we did as coaches and what we evaluated his transcript. We saw that, hey, this is not going to get you here. This is what you need to take. And his counselor, April Edgen, I still remember her name. She did a good job of getting him switched out of there and getting him in the right classes. And then look at Rico, ended up being an All-American here, graduating, and now, has been coaching. So things like that are the things that I'm most proud of. And seeing what these guys, fathers today, and, and then, hey, I took another kid from Chattanooga, Meatball. He was our film guy. Meatball, y'all know it, whether you know it or not, he just got a national championship with
And
Indiana.
yeah,
He's
absolutely.
director of film. He does their filming for them. So really proud of all of that, man. And the guys that came through this program and stuck it out. And things that we were able to do is just so many of those guys, like you say, the transfers. We worked really hard to get them.
Yep. Well, this is a Jackson State, special, and we're talking a lot of things about Jackson State. But I'm gonna pivot for one quick question, right quick. People know how much I dislike UT Martin. I do
Mm-hmm.
not like UT Martin, but Coach Simpson is your friend,
You know,
and and Coach Simpson's son was just the quarterback of the University of Alabama. And of
right.
course, Marcel's the quarterback at Texas A&M. Have you talked to Coach Jason Simpson, man?
I talked to Jason a lot, actually. I haven't talked to him in the past 2 or 3 months. Him and they're trying to get things settled, trying to decide whether Ty was going to come back or not. I talked to him prior to. I think I texted him during the one of the games they won. And right before their playoff game, I texted him. We went back and forth on text, but I didn't like Jason at all. I thought he tried to run the score up on us when I was a defensive coordinator, and I kind of held that in my craw for a long time. But eventually, through the coaches' meetings and the OVC and just kind of getting to know him a little bit, he's a different person. But again, we ended up becoming friends, and both of his sons, Ty and I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on this. His youngest son is a stud too. Now Graham plays on my 7-on-7 team, Tennessee State. So we communicate frequently now, but we are. And my daughter was at Alabama, in recruiting when Ty was at Alabama, so she knows the Simpsons too.
Yeah. All right.
Well, look here, Coach, man. One final question for you before we let you go, man. I know you gotta get up out of here. I want you to think about this as best as you can, and I wrote this down. What should fans appreciate about this game of TSU versus Jackson State that you think they might overlook?
Man, it's a rivalry game, and I'm sure that you guys have talked about it. This goes back to John Merritt, Cat Coleman, Old Buddy Coffee, Shannon Little, and some of you guys, the people that's listening, won't even know those names, but it's just flat out dislike, man. Yeah. We don't like Jackson State, and they don't like us. Mm-hmm. Now we respect Jackson State. Now I can see Jackson State people in the mall or whatever, and we gonna talk a little noise. And matter of fact, I got a guy here in Nashville. Rodney owed me about 7 steak dinners, but he said until I pay for them 2. That I owe him, that we can't settle up on that, but it's just a dislike. It's going to be a physical game. It's going to be a fun game. The atmosphere is going to be great. I think at the end of the game, we can all agree to disagree, walk out of the stadium, and talk noise to each other, and without fighting or anything like that. But everybody knows what this is, man. It's just it's a rivalry game that goes back to the beginning of time, and it's one of those games that I think that needs to be shared with these kids that own this team that haven't played there. I mean, you guys need to do a documentary and send it over to, because they don't know, and I don't think Jackson State kids will know, but we know, and we know that this game can make or break the season. As for at Tennessee State now, guys, I'm telling you, we won 3 games one year. We beat Jackson State, and that's all people talk about. So there's 2 games on your schedule you don't lose to. It's FAMU and Jackson State.
Yeah.
By the way, we were 7-1 against FAM in my team.
Yeah. You brought it back from Atlanta, man, because they had won every type of way. I mean, they found a way.
I remember
that. Oh my God! You be like, goodness, what is FAMU? Lucky.
For the life of me, this what it was, man. It's like, how in the heck, the same way we just know it's gonna work out for us against Jackson State all my years, we were like, it just always happens to fall their way. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm 5-0 against Jackson State, but 0-5 against FAMU, man. I'm just like, I couldn't even get 1 against them jokers, man. Dang.
Yeah. Hey. Well, the thing is, man, we got both of those teams on the schedule. We got A&M on the schedule this year. We got Morgan State. That's all this type of things. We're getting these HBCU matchups. But the thing that what really got us started with this series is that we wanted our people to know the magnitude, because they've been removed from it for a long time. You know what I mean? Like, this ain't time to play.
If you don't know, now you know. This is pure, unadulterated hatred when it comes to Tennessee State and Jackson State on the football field, guys. Again, I can't reiterate it enough. It's a rivalry game. We stole Coach Merritt from them. We, Joe Gillum, Craig Gillum, Joey Gillum. All of those dudes would have been Jackson State Tigers had not been for Coach Merritt, coming here. So again, go Tigers. I can tell you there's one thing that always happens in this game, though. One thing. You know what that is, Flynn?
What's that?
A Tiger always wins.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Well, look at here, man. Look at here. That is we're gonna let it end on that, Coach, man. As always, I much appreciate you coming on to the show. Like I said, you bring those gems every time we get you on here, man. So, as he said, y'all, this isn't just a rivalry. This is about more than just records. This is about responsibility. And tonight, Coach Rod Reed brought it to you, man. This is Upro Radio Show, man. We're gonna see y'all Thursday with our next guest. He's confirmed, Flim.
Yeah, we'll see, man.
Okay.
We gotta see what this we're gonna see what this recruiting day look like, and then we'll be ready to continue. Cause that's very pivotal tomorrow.
Yeah, man.
Who y'all bringing on Thursday? You can't release it right now.
Well, we supposed to have one of your teammates as we finish up the 88 series, and that's
we'll tell y'all here. We'll tell y'all here.
Lee Smith Jr. Oh man, I tell you what, hey, you want to talk about an unbelievable athlete, man? Before he had the horrific knee injury, that kid was, and he was my roommate his freshman year. Lee was my roommate, and when I tell you, unbelievable. First 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", outside linebacker, 215, 220, and could run and jump. I mean, it's just he was unbelievable. He's unbelievable. So you tell him that Coach Reed, Rod Reed said, "What's up?"
All right, we'll do.
Good deal, man. That's Upro Radio Show. Myles, let's take us out, man. We appreciate y'all. See y'all Thursday.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, go Big Blue.